Well, hello, friends. This is Terry Christoph, and this is the Smarkle Politics Podcast. Took a little bit of a hiatus. It's probably been about a year, perhaps a little bit more since I've recorded a podcast, but I've been wanting to get back to it. I've missed you guys. What a great community that we have at Smarkle Politics. So I wanted to jump back on and kind of just jump back into it. I have been preparing mentally for it. I bought a bunch of equipment that I don't know how to use, so I apologize. I'm on my teenage daughter's little headset she uses for gaming. I don't know how the sound quality is going to be. I promise it'll get better. I have this fabulous equipment that I have no idea how to use. But anyways, yes, it's been a while. Like you, I'm sure COVID, lockdowns, chaos. It was all chaos. And we were trying to decide whether to stay in Virginia, maybe go to Tennessee. We tested out Tennessee. Wasn't my kind of place, but I loved it, but it wasn't the right move for our family at the time. So we're back in Virginia, and hey, that was a good decision too, because now we have Glenn Youngkin as our governor. Way better than Terry McAuliffe. I'm quite happy about that. But I wanted to get back into this. I missed the podcasting. I missed talking politics. I am obviously no policy wonk. I am just here to kind of like maybe shed some light, shed a spotlight, I guess, is really what I want to do on issues. The reason it's kind of taken me a while to get back into it is that I've normally had a co-host or two or three. It's been kind of a panel discussion kind of thing, but everybody's busy. Kira's running for office. I know that April has taken a new job. Like, everybody's super busy. So I want to do it. So instead of just me monologuing, because I'm really no good at it, I thought I'm going to reboot my newsletter, and then the podcast can be what I've covered in the newsletter. So anyway, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go over what the newsletter says, what I've been talking about, some issues, and really some nonsense from Democrats that I think we need to talk more about. We need to let more people about this kind of just absolute ridiculousness that spews forth from them. And I wanted to reconnect with you all. I hope you all are well. I am doing well. My family is doing well. Hope is the same for you. We're enjoying the fall weather. Go Commanders. Woo! Football season. So I hope your football team's doing better. I hope life has calmed down for everybody. And I hope that you want to hear from us and get back into this podcast thing and maybe join us at the newsletter. So, hey, let's do this thing. The name of the first newsletter of my reboot is called Stacey Abrams Takes Repugnancy to a New Level. So again, we all know who she is. There's a visual involved, so I'm gonna put the link in the show notes about so you can see Stacey Abrams, the delightful Stacey Abrams, who is of course candidate for governor in Georgia. She is the Democrat, and it's a rematch of 2018 when she's taking on the incumbent Brian Kemp, who is the current governor and a Republican. And you're saying to yourself, maybe, wait a minute, isn't Stacey Abrams the governor of Georgia? No. You'd be wrong about that. Only in her own mind is she governor of Georgia, because she is our original. She really sets the standard. She is the OG election denier. So that's our girl, Stacey. She's just great. The left loves her. To those of us with a little bit of sanity, we know that she is the sorest of losers from the 2018 governor's race in Georgia. Anyway, it's back on. And of course, we are back down to the wire here with the election coming up in just a few weeks. Well, you know who she is. I don't have to explain who Stacey Abrams is to you all. You guys know who she is. She is the darling of MSNBC, and she doesn't hesitate to let us know who she is. She's a hater of Georgia. There's links. There'll be links in the newsletter. She's a lover of identity politics and a proponent of non-citizens voting. She's everything you expect a Democrat to be. And apparently, now this one I have a hard time dealing with. She's apparently also a romance novelist. So I can only imagine, and I will only imagine. I will not read this, but if anyone else has dared to dive into something like this, just let us know. Drop us a line. Anyways, besides being an election denier, she might be best known for her wholehearted embrace of abortion at all stages of pregnancy. She's very radical in her abortion views. And it seems like that maybe she's possibly even advocating for post-birth abortions here. Let's talk about what she said yesterday on MSNBC. So she was on Morning Joe, and she was being interviewed by Mike Barnacle at the time, who really just kind of, set it up as it's their job, right? As an arm of the DNC, it's their job to try and make Democrat candidates look good. So he started the softball saying, hey, maybe abortion isn't the most important issue to people right now. Maybe it's those, kitchen table issues, affording your rent, affording your mortgage, affording food, gas, all those things. But like any good Democrat and any radical leftist feminist, she has to make it about abortion. And when she says the way that you can address inflation, she says, quote, having children is why you're worried about your price for gas. It's why you're concerned about how much food costs. For women, this is not a reductive issue. Okay, let's get the obvious part out of the way. Democrats only have abortion. That's it. That is their issue. The answer to everything is abortion. Abortion is their solution to every problem. And yes, they are ghouls. They are ghoulish in their love of abortion. Clearly, what Abrams was being asked here is her plan to help Georgians. She is running to represent them in the Senate, where she would have a great influence over what happens to the people in her state. And these people are hurting from Biden's brutal economy. I mean, across the nation they are, but they're also in her state, and that should be super relevant and important to her. Gas prices are rising, housing is increasingly unaffordable, and putting food on the table isn't a given in many households. These are the facts. Wages are not rising as much as inflation. They're not in line, and people are hurting, and families are hurting. And so she's on Morning Joe to get these softballs like, hey, here's going to be her plan. It was your typical MSNBC style softball question meant to give a favored candidate like Stacey Abrams the chance to tout their economic policies. And Stacey whiffed it in typical fashion because she just doesn't miss a chance to really just not answer and bring it back to abortion. Clearly, it's about abortion. You can't afford to feed your family. You can't afford to put gas up your car. You can't afford your insurance. You can't, all these things. Abortion's the answer. Her solutions to these very serious issues, what was it? So this is my take on what she's saying. Sorry, neighbors, but it sucks to be you. You chose not to abort your children, so you are out of luck. Next time, save yourself the expense of this parenthood thing and get yourself an abortion. In other words, you deserve to suffer because you chose to have these children you're struggling to feed due to my party. Let's be clear, her party, the Democrats, the party of Stacey Abrams, because of their disastrous policies. It's as if Stacey is advocating letting children starve or otherwise go without because their parents chose to be parents, which is really the basis of all of humanity. People procreating, creating, new life, taking care of that new life. I don't doubt that the vast majority of Americans and Georgians in this particular case are working hard to take care of these kids that they choose to have. And these policies being put forth by Biden and, the people that Stacey Abrams props up are bad and are hurting Americans. So that's the thing then with Stacey. We call this a post-birth abortion. Whatever it is, Abrams' answer was diabolical, and she's utterly repugnant. An utterly repugnant excuse for a woman. So, I mean, that's, just to sum it up, what is the answer to people that can't afford to put food on the table, that are having a hard time affording gas? Well, number one, you should have aborted those children. This is your own fault. You had children. You did what you were put here on earth by God to do. You had children. And that's disgraceful. And I almost feel like if we take this to some other logical conclusions here, it's kind of like, well, those of you that are hurting that didn't opt for abortion, you should be second in line to people who are hurting that did opt for abortion, or some kind of mangled thinking like that. So she is insane. She is nuts. And it's just everything is abortion. That is all they have. That's all they have. Well, the good news here is that Stacey Abrams is trailing handily in the polls, and voters are likely to return Brian Kemp to the governor's mansion. But, and this is important, when Democrats tell us who they are, we should believe them. Stacey Abrams is the face of the modern Democratic Party, and let's face it, it's not very pretty. Okay, second story, John Fetterman. He's just fine. No, really, his donor, doctor, whoever says he is. So we have a tweet there. Again, I will link to the newsletter in the show notes so that you can go on over and see it. But it's a great article from Free Beacon, Washington Free Beacon. God, they're such a wonderful source of information that you don't find in lots of other places. But they uncovered that, John Fetterman, if you've been keeping up with the Pennsylvania Senate race, just to recap, John Fetterman is the current lieutenant governor, and he is a Democrat, and he is facing Dr. Oz, the TV doctor and Republican candidate. I guess I'm not convinced he's Republican, but sure, he's the Republican candidate. And Fetterman he's this interesting looking candidate. He's a big hulking guy in a hoodie, and he's bald, but even more than that, like, he has some serious medical issues that have been called into question. And in particular, he has had a stroke in the past that has seemingly caused some cognitive issues on the campaign trail. And this all came to a head last week during an interview with not MSNBC, just regular NBC, just mostly, a part of the DNC, just maybe not as much as MSNBC. Fetterman had to use a computer to help process the questions from the reporter. And I guess he has these cognitive auditory processing issues from the stroke. And red flags were raised in the media, and not just the right-leaning media like others in the media. It was flagged that questions about his overall health and his readiness to serve in the Senate if he's elected. So in an effort to stave off these questions about his fitness for office, his campaign released a donor doctor's note giving the candidate a mostly clean bill of health. So Washington Free Beacon finds out that this guy, Dr. Chen, who's like, yeah, Fetterman's fine. Absolutely. This is your guy. He's ready, rested and tan and rested and ready to run, or whatever the saying is. He's just fine. Oh, but also Dr. Chen has given tens of thousands of dollars over the years to Democratic candidates and party committees. And wouldn't you know it, contributed $1,300 to Fetterman's campaign before he became Fetterman's doctor. So this guy is clearly propping up a candidate who is unfit for office, who should really, it's Joe Biden all over again. It's, he clearly should be not in the limelight. He should be at home, recovering, getting the attention he needs, because he is not fit for office. And it's kind of, we're seeing it's another Dr. Jill Biden situation where Fetterman's wife, Giselle, I believe is her name, is kind of now his spokesperson. She stands next to him, and she answers the questions for him, not even explaining the questions to him. She's just going to answer the questions at this point. So is it like a Bill and Hillary thing? It's a 2-for-1. I don't know what we're getting there, but it's concerning. It's very concerning. And I love partisan politics as much as everyone, but I also feel like, wow, we can't trot these people with these issues out there. It's very cringy, and it's sometimes pretty heartbreaking to see what politics does, how they can justify putting a candidate out there that surely needs to be somewhere else getting the help that they need, and not on a campaign trail looking dazed and confused. And we saw it with Biden, and now we're seeing with Fetterman. And they actually, God, it's not in the newsletter, but Biden was in Pennsylvania campaigning with Fetterman today. And there's all sorts of strange things that Biden says. Fetterman said nothing. So it was like, the blind leading the blind, these impaired people. And I'm not saying that to mock them. They are truly and obviously and demonstrably impaired together on the stage, and the Democrats think this is just fine. This is the party of Stacey Abrams. This is just fine. This is no problem. Put them out there. Anyway, so we're going to see. We'll see what happens. The polls are tightening. I think Fetterman still does lead by a few points, but I expect it'll narrow as we get towards Election Day. And we'll see. We'll see if the hoodie-wearing Hulk or the TV-ready doctor is going to be storming the halls of the Senate and making waves on Capitol Hill. So we will get back to that. I had a few quick hits. The great story about Liz Truss versus the lettuce, the vegetable. They did a little competition to see if Liz Truss would last longer as the prime minister than a head of lettuce, and the lettuce won. It's not looking great, the lettuce. The head of lettuce, I have to say, is not exactly peak, not fresh out of the garden. But beat Liz Truss, who obviously has resigned, and the fight is on. And I don't know, maybe we'll get Boris Johnson back in there. Who knows what'll happen? Kyle Rittenhouse has launched a new YouTube channel focused on the Second Amendment. The Pentagon's equity chief praises a book calling 9/11 first responders menaces as she pushes for revolution. So that's great. We'd love to hear that about our military, don't we? Another young Republican woman faces sexist attacks from Democrats' playbook. This is an opinion piece, so I encourage you to go read it. It's happening a lot on the campaign trail right now. The things that are being said to Republican women candidates, not surprising. We're used to it, but it's still strong. I mean, Democrats, woohoo, the party of women. Yeah, not so much. Not so much. I mean, it's like they don't want blacks to vote for them. They don't want Hispanics. Now they don't particularly want women with their, with their very obviously demented, demeaning, and insulting attitudes towards conservative women. So the link is in the newsletter. And then this last one that I had in my quick hits was, I guess this guy, his name's Ethan Klein. He has a YouTube channel, and sounds like just a delightful guy, and said that if they start rounding up the Jews again, that he hopes Ben Shapiro gets gassed first. So that's a nice thought. Lefties aren't insane at all. This guy, he and Stacey Abrams should grab lunch together and just kind of just be maniacally crazy towards each other. But Ben, I saw on Twitter, had a very classy response where he said, like, if there's another Holocaust, I hope Ethan Klein and his family make it out safely, which is really the only opinion you can have if you are sane, if you are normal. And Ethan Klein is not normal, and that is just shameful behavior. I also threw in a video about how the woke lefties are taking over a founding fathers home here in Virginia. You're going to want to watch that. And of course, really the reason that my newsletter even exists, the memes. It's kind of my specialty, kind of curating a nice, delightful selection of memes. You can have the beverage of choice as you peruse the memes. But anyway, all about this newsletter. I never even gave you the URL. It is, yes, another Substack newsletter. But I tell you, I've been on it for a long time, even if I haven't been consistent as an early adopter. Anyway, the address is smartgirlpolitics.substack.com. I'm hoping from now on to do 2 newsletters a week where we shoot for a Tuesday and a Friday news drop, and maybe highlighting a few important stories. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff going on out there right now. And I love to do that. I love to find those stories that maybe don't get the attention. I know Stacey Abrams got a lot, but I just had to put my word in on this one because she's truly awful. She's truly a nasty, repugnant woman. John Fetterman, not a great guy either, and really sad, and he should be off of the campaign trail. And please, Pennsylvania voters, do not put him off in office. Dr. Oz is the better choice. I'm not crazy about it, but obviously better than a man who is impaired, who's thinking you can't even trust. So go over to smartgirlpolitics.substack.com and subscribe and get in on the fun. And I think what I will do is take each newsletter and turn it into a podcast for now, while I think of ways to really reboot this thing without me having to be a monologuer, because I don't know. I don't know. I think some people are born to monologue, and I don't think I'm one of them. But I do like communicating and putting information out there, and hopefully serving you, this community that listens, with something that is valuable and useful to you. So that's the goal. Whatever it looks like, I would love for you to tell me. So if you ever want to drop me a line, it's terry.christoph, CHRISTOPH. Oh, Terry, TERI. 1 R, 1 I. Got to know these things. So terry.christoph@gmail.com. Tell me what this should be. I want to make something that is useful to you and informational, and see where we can go with it, and maybe make it something a little bigger than it has been and what it will be. So anyway, thank you for tuning in, and I'm happy to be back. And hopefully I can converse with some of you over at ricochet.com. And I think that is it for now. Happy to be back. Hope you are well. Let me know how it's going with you, and let me know what we can do to make this a podcast and a newsletter that helps you and serves you and is valuable to you. So anyway, have a great few days, and I will connect with you all probably in about 3 or 4 more days. So good to be back. See ya.